Welcome back to the High Ticket AI Systems Podcast. Everyone, please welcome the one and only Mr. Atishay. Atishay, welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Thanks so much, Jordan. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good, man. I'm happy to have you. Now, off camera, we were definitely talking about some of the amazing results you delivered on behalf of your clients, which we definitely will cover in a moment. But to give the people like an overview of what you do and what the company sells and who you guys help, can you shed some light on that topic?
Absolutely. So my name is Atishay Jain. I run HyperKe. We are a B2B outbound agency. We work with B2B businesses, specifically ones that want a high volume of appointments. And, we send cold emails, make phone calls, run LinkedIn outbound campaigns on behalf of our clients. The goal is to help you turn strangers into sales appointments for your sales team. So that's what we do.
And how long has that company been operable, like running?
So it's been 6 years now, six. So we started 6 years ago. I started cold email in 2019, and formally the company was incorporated in 2020. So now it's been 6 years of us doing this.
That's amazing, man. Congrats on that.
Thank
And
you.
I'm just going to dive right in. So some of the case studies you have are you're feeding one sales team in particular, 15 sales calls per day. Now, without getting into like too specifics if you don't want to, but like how many emails is that per day? What are the channels that you guys are using? What does like the copy look like? What's their offer? What the hell do they even sell?
Right. So those are very good questions. And, there's like over the years of doing this, I found that there's a certain type of B2B business that is ripe, that is like the perfect opportunity for outbound, for a channel like ours. These types of businesses typically have revenues north of at least $2.5 million a year, ideally 5 to 10. They have a sales team that is hungry for sales calls. So they want people taking those calls. And they're doing outbound. Obviously, any business with a sales team, they're, all of your reps, SDRs, account executives, they will be doing their own outbound. But often these companies are missing a systemized process that can run a system, an engine that can run and distribute calls to these salespeople in addition to whatever they're doing, right? So situations like these where we're booking 15, 20, 25 calls per day for the closers, this company, we've scaled our outreach with them. So now we have days where we're booking more than 50 appointments just for this company. And these kinds of engines, they work well if one, obviously you have the sales team to handle those calls, and two, you have a large total addressable market, which means we can run campaigns using cold email, we can make phone calls on your behalf, we can reach out to people on LinkedIn, we can send connection requests, we can send in-mail, we can combine all of those channels to put you in front of as many of your ideal customers as possible. And this engine operates at scale. So the reason I say that these types of organizations benefit from engines like ours is because all of your reps are going to do their own thing. They find someone on LinkedIn whose post they like, they reach out, and maybe they get a lead, they get a sale from it. But if you're the founder or the owner of a business like that, or you're a director, you're managing the sales team, you want to make sure that all of your reps are fed, right? So you want to feed them opportunities, which is why it makes sense to set up infrastructure that does this at scale. So you asked how much outreach are we doing? Right, we're sending more than 50,000. We're contacting more than 50,000 people per day for this company across these three channels, right? And we do that for the entirety of the month. We reach out to their entire TAM in about 7 weeks, and then we recycle that TAM and we hit these people again. So you need both. You need a large TAM, which means there's a massive supply of prospects, and you need a large enough sales team that can take those calls. And then we put together this engine that connects people from here to people from here. And then, from here is where the business starts to make money. So those are the situations this works. And again, not all businesses are a good fit because there's only so many businesses in the US that are making more than $5 million a year. Then you also need to be B2B. You need to have a sales team that's hungry for appointments. There are many businesses, very successful businesses, that have 5 clients or 5 customers, each customer paying them $1 million a year. And now you're a $5 million business. For a business like that, the system will not work. So there's a few requirements, but if you're a good fit, an engine like this can absolutely scale your sales to the moon. So that's what we look for. And those are the types of businesses that can get the kinds of results you mentioned.
That's amazing. So you recycle through the TAM in about 7 weeks. I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, you're spamming your list. You're spamming your list. I am in full agreement with you. Like, we're going to recycle the freaking leads, bro. Like, and people think that aren't outbound experts that they are going to remember what the initial email said. I'm like, dude, you get bombarded. A lot of people receive like 5 emails a day. Okay. So the fact that the fact that you think that they're going to remember your one email is delusional. Like, that's just not how human nature works. Like, you don't remember the emails you got yesterday. So you're fine, right? You can email the same people. I think as long as maybe the domain looks a bit different. I'm not sure if you add signatures or not. We can definitely talk about that. But of course, like the copy has to look a bit different, right? Because if they deleted one email and you send the
Right.
exact same email, it's like, all
Yeah.
right, now you're spamming me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Obviously. So when you recycle the TAM, the theory behind doing that is, okay, I reached out to you talking about pain point number 1 7 weeks ago. That did not resonate because obviously you did not respond to me. And when we recycle the TAM, anyone that responded, we exclude those. So we take care of those things. So the next time I'm going to reach out to you, I'm going to talk about my solution, but with it, in the context of a different pain point. So I'm going to reach out to you with a different angle. The idea here is that, there's two things that need to be true in order for someone to respond to you: timing and resonance, right? So maybe the first time I reached out to you, the timing wasn't right. You were busy with something else. Or maybe the first time that I reached out to you, I was talking about solving problem X, but you already have X covered and my product can solve X, Y, and Z. So the next time I'm going to talk about problem Y, and maybe that will resonate with you. So the reason you cycle this TAM is not because you're dying to get meetings, not because you're desperate, but just because different people in your total addressable market will react differently to different messages. So you want to make sure you test all of those messages and get all of those people that could be a good customer for yourself.
what are your best practices for subject lines? How dense, how many words are in the actual email?
So I'll talk about both of those things. First is with subject line. Now, these are things, if you're in a super niche industry, you might be okay with violating these rules. But the general guidance is we like to keep our subject lines between 1 and 3 words, and we don't test subject lines at all. So we just create subject lines thinking, what is it that's going to get someone in that space to open the email, and that's it. And we create 25, 30, 40 subject lines, and we spin tags all of those, and all the emails just choose one of those subject lines, and it gets sent. And these variations, I'll give you an example. Or if you have an industry in mind, let me just choose something. So let's say I'm reaching out to home services, right? Or let's say I'm reaching out to e-commerce. Now, if I'm going to reach out to e-commerce, I'm going to use subject lines that feel like they come from their world. So if I'm reaching out to, say, founders of e-commerce brands, and let's say I'm selling them marketing services, I would use subject lines saying product collection, new collection. If it's the summer season, then summer collection. If it's apparel brands, if it's a supplement brand, then I'd say, so and so supplement type, subscription. And, so I'll use 2 words, both of them that come from their world. And when they see that in their inbox, that makes them want to click. Some of our variations, which are evergreen, are also saying something like company name, just their company name. That's a good one because people tend to click on that. Then we also try to use subject lines which could look like it's an internal email, right? So something like notes on, and then something topical. Or category report, and category being their specific category. So we keep the most important thing, in my opinion, is keeping it 2 or 3 words so that you don't give away too much, and still making it sound like it came from their world. Their world meaning either a colleague or the words that they hear about often. And many of these subject lines, people click on those because they're not sure if this is a sales pitch, or if this is a customer's email, or if this is a potential customer, or they're just curious. And that is the whole point of the subject line. So we do a bunch of these. We don't split test these anymore because when it comes to split testing, we found there's very low ROI to split testing subject lines. We just do like a large batch of 25 to 40 subject lines, put them all in spin tags for deliverability reasons, and send emails with those.
That's actually a great advice right there. I think the shorter the better for sure. And you definitely want to use industry language, like insider language, right? Trying to split test subject lines, like you said, there's no ROI in it. Like, they're going to open it or they're not going to open it. Like, it's easy as that. But with the body, like, you can test a lot of different variations with the body, because that they're either going to respond, not respond, have a question about it. There's so many different things that could happen with the body opposed to the subject line. So with that being said, I like to keep my emails relatively short. like less than 50 words. What are your
Mhm.
thoughts on that? Do you go longer, shorter?
We test those for some industries. Surprisingly, I don't want to admit it, but for some industries, we've seen longer emails tend to do well. But
Really?
yeah, so when we're testing emails, we like to these days, especially at scale. With we were talking about that customer. So at scale, we have to vary the body a lot. Like just for deliverability reasons, because your email body gets fingerprinted, and then even if your message was resonating with people, it'll start landing in spam. So we have to vary the body of the email quite a bit, which then means that individual words in the email copy lose their significance because even if we found a winning combination, winning phrase, we can't keep it forever. So we zoom out a little bit more, especially when we're running cold email at scale, right? For customers like this one, where we're sending millions of emails a month. We zoom out and we break our tests down into three categories. So we're testing the angle, the offer, and the audience. Those are the three big variables we test. So the angle would be why am I reaching out to that individual? So something about I'll continue with that marketing service example, right? I could be reaching out to you because I saw your ads. I could be reaching out to you because I saw a new collection on your website. Could be reaching out to you because I saw that you don't have an abandoned cart sequence on your e-commerce store. I could be reaching out to you because I saw that you recently posted a job. So all of these different angles, that's variable number one. Variable number two is my offer to you, which is what am I giving you in exchange for whatever I'm asking of you? My ask could be asking for a demo. My ask could be asking for a call. It could be asking that you sign up, go to a link and sign up, create a free account. It could be asking if I can send you a Loom video. It can be asking if I can send you a case study or another asset. What do you get in exchange for agreeing to my ask? That's the offer. So the offer in many cases is I'll justify the value of the asset and say, do you want me to send it over? Or if we're getting people to sign up, I'll tell people, hey, we're running this pilot. We are offering signups exclusively to your kind of people, like people exactly like you. Do you want to sign up? So then they would sign up, right? So that's the offer. And the third component is the audience, which is the list. Now, even with large TAMs like this one, we still break the list down into small segments of 5 to 10,000 people, right? And these segments are based on the examples I gave you earlier. So these are very closely tied to the angles, wherein we'll find a segment that's advertising on Meta, another one that's advertising on Google, another one where they've posted jobs in the last 3 months, another one where their headcount has grown in the last 3 months, and a variety of other things. And then we reach out to these different segments using different angles. So specifically in the copy, the variations that tend to work for most businesses are short, like you said, under 50 words. We've had so many, campaigns that are like 20 words. That's just one question and then a 2-word call to action worth exploring. Those campaigns, we've had those campaigns work for 7-8 months consistently without making any changes for some clients. So short, if you're unsure, test both. And if you're still unsure after your testing results, just err on the side of shorter copy being better than longer. For some industries, like we ran this campaign to medical device manufacturers for a company that in Ireland. This was a startup, and we wrote short copy. The client chose to, they gave us copy that their sales team was using, and we A/B tested those. And every single time, the longer copy outperformed the shorter one. Like every single time, we would keep changing the short copy variations, but their longer copy outperformed the short one. And the long copy had a lot of things, a lot of components that I actually advise people to not use. For example, pleasantries in the beginning of the email. It is my opinion that if you're a stranger, right, I don't want to hear you telling me, hope your day is going well, because I don't believe you when you say that. I know you don't know me, so you do not hope that my day is going well. Like you're just saying that. But those types of emails do well. So A/B test this. Again, this is why it's more, the most important thing you can do is understand your prospect, right? So A/B test these things. For 80% of people, short is going to do well, which is what you said. Like exactly. I concur. But in some cases, you might find out that it's worth trying longer copy as well.
Do you think longer copy performs better in like not a more professional setting, but like like the manufacturer or the medical device manufacturers. Like that's not a more professional setting than another industry per se. But I guess what would be your conclusion as to why longer copy performed better in that industry versus like reaching out to an agency?
I think it's because of every industry has their own unsaid, unspoken rules, right? So people like to communicate a certain way. Even today, if you were to speak to consultants, like people that work at McKinsey or Deloitte, they write their emails in a certain way. Like their language, their tone is different from how we write. I could reach out and say, hey, if I could do this for you, would you be interested? A McKinsey consultant is going to read that and they're going to find 15 reasons to not respond to that email because they're like, who are you? You have not given me any proof. Why should I trust a random person asking me? So they'd find reasons to not respond. Whereas if someone sent them a longer email talking about, like talking in the, essentially just to cut the long answer short, it boils down to understanding how your target audience talks, right? If it sounds like you're one of them, they will respond, which is why, this copy from the client did so well because they were selling to that industry for 10 years. So they knew how they talk and that copy did well. Now, obviously, if your offer is so good that people are compelled to respond, and when I say offer is so good, you don't have to give someone $1 million. It just has to be so believably attractive that people throw everything else out the window, even if you don't talk like them, even if there are a few red flags, if the offer is so good that they are compelled to respond, then you will still get responses. And short copy does a really good job at conveying offers that are exceptionally good, because you can put that in front of people.
Yeah, from our experience, having just one sentence that's just the offer. It has converted really well for agencies and like depending on the type of revenue. Regarding offer, what has been some grand slam offers for you and like some of your clients where it's like, wow, like that performed really, really well, like better than anything else?
Right.
If
So
you
I'll just think of all the offers, the most successful ones we've had with clients. We had an SEO agency and they were offering, so they said, we'll do your SEO for 30 days and you don't pay until we start ranking. So you no setup fees, nothing. You don't pay until you start to show up somewhere. Now, this offer worked well. We got lots of responses, lots of meetings. And now if you've been, if you've been in the SEO space, you'd start to wonder how would the agency make this work, right? The reason they were able to make this work was one, because their costs for those first 30 days, they would keep it low. And two, they would get high commitment, in terms of access to the website and getting the client to do a bunch of things. So they'd sign a bunch of people on this free offer and a lot of people would sign up. Then a few of them would just not submit the onboarding materials, which means the agency doesn't have to do any work, right? So you filter out people who were not interested because they're not willing to go through the onboarding process. And the people who have done the onboarding work, the agency would get results for them. And now because they were interested enough to submit the onboarding materials and they're getting results, they obviously don't want to when the money printer starts to work, you obviously don't want it to stop. So this was very smart. And again, not every agency can do this because, everyone has their own costs and a structure in which they work. But this was an incredible offer. Then we ran a cold calling only campaign for another agency where, their offer was 30 days. We'll run your ads for free. And, if you want out in any of these first 30 days, no questions asked, we'll refund you. That's it. So plain and simple, no questions asked. And I think this agency was able to make it work because of their sales process. They would get a lot of buy-in and trust from the prospects that they would actually onboard. So this offer did well. Then we have another agency. This is a PR company and they don't have like a transactional offer at all. They just talk about their social proof. So they just, and they've done incredible amounts of work, with some very famous names like celebrities, lots of celebrities. Hollywood celebrities, brands like the Rubik's Cube, Red Bull. So large names that anyone in the world would recognize. So with this company, our outreach they don't have an offer. They don't have a risk-free offer or a guarantee or, your typical Alex Hormozy style offers. They don't have none of that, but they just are so good. Like if you look them up, you'll know that this company is legitimate. And I like to, after we worked with a few of these companies, I realized that if Forbes were to reach out to you, asking you, hey, do you want to be on the Forbes Council or do you want us to talk about you? You would respond, right? So it gets to a point where if the who is recognizable, like who is doing the outreach, If that's big enough, then the what and the how and the why start to become irrelevant, because you just respond because you're like, okay, they reached out to me. This is at least worth finding out what this is about, right? So I think that's the best offer you can have, which is, if you're, that's why a lot of the sales advice that we see in this space that comes from companies like HubSpot or established brands, it doesn't work for everybody else because it worked for them because they have a brand, right?
Right. Because
Whereas if you're a 6-month-old startup trying to run HubSpot's playbook, it's not going to work for you because people recognize HubSpot, people don't recognize you. So yeah, those are the 3 levels of ascension, I would say, in terms of offers: free work, guaranteed work, or you're just, so good, like so much social proof yet that you don't need to offer anyone anything. The transaction or the exchange is just them getting your time versus you getting theirs.
like offers like that. I have many questions on cold calling, but I want to circle back to the second component you said earlier, which is the actual exchange, the offer. What do they get in return of X? I have found that direct offers like, hey, book a call here, or do you want to schedule a time? Let's schedule a demo. Those convert far less, but the ones that do show up, way higher intent. People that do say yes have way higher intent compared to, can I send you a case study? Can I send you a quick loom? Can I send you this personalized lead magnet or personalized asset? We get a lot more yeses on those, but the conversion rate from yes to scheduled demo is not as good or warm compared to a direct, let's schedule a demo, call to action on the email. What have your comparison, what have your analytics been on those 2 offers?
Exactly the same observation. And I've often talked about this on social media as well, because these days you see people on LinkedIn pushing, talking about, there's this whole trend of GTM engineers. Everybody's saying use soft call to actions, use, like send Loom videos, send case studies. And they use words like these offers print, right? When the truth is, like, sure, it looks amazing on your dashboard. Like you said, you get lots of interested replies, but the people that are usually talking about these, their goal is just to drive interested replies. Because if you're a GTM engineer, you just want to show your client, hey, we got this. I created this campaign. Look at all the green here in the campaign. All these positive responses. But the truth is, like you said, a very small portion of them convert into opportunities, like pursuing ops, and that's because a lot of people reply just because they're curious, or they just want to see what you have. And many times when you send them the resource, they don't even take a look. So we still run those kinds of campaigns, by the way. So I'm not opposed to those, but you need to be going into stuff like this, knowing that the conversion here is going to be lower. And even when people convert, they're going to take longer. So after you send them the resource, you'll have to continue to follow up with them. You'll have to potentially send them more resources, or just chase that lead more than someone who just said, hey, yes, I'm agree. I'm open to meeting you on Wednesday this week. Send me an invite. So it depends on how your system's built, how much more assets you have, how much, your industry. Again, if you have longer sales cycles, you can afford, if you have a TAM of 5,000 people, you can afford to just follow up with people forever. If it's only 5,000 people, you want as many hand raisers as possible. So you send them assets to at least see if they're interested, and then you follow those people across multiple channels. If you have a TAM of 500,000 people, I wouldn't bother with an offer like that. I would rather just have like the top 3% of the market that's ready to talk right now. And then 8 weeks later, hit them again with a different offer and see if that gets them interested.
Yeah, because that 3% is constantly changing every quarter, right?
Yep.
So
Yep,
with
exactly.
you have some good leeway. For the team that's currently booking 50 sales calls from your services, are they a SaaS, like mid-sized SaaS company? Are they an agency, or what exactly
They
is
have
their?
So they have 2 products. They have a SaaS product and they also have a service, managed service. So they
Okay,
do both. It's a
got you.
combination of the 2. Yeah.
Got you. Let's cold calling. That's what I was going to ask. What industries do you think are performing not better, but at least performing within KPI from still utilizing the phones? Because I've actually thought about doing that for us internally. I have to get the operations in place first and like find the right talent. But I come from a cold calling background, so I know it freaking works from a B2C perspective, right? But we'll love your insights here.
Right. So we have one of our smaller clients, they're using one SDR. They're a recruiter. So the SDR just calls companies that are hiring for jobs and calls the people in the HR department, sometimes owners of businesses, and that works. We've seen marketing agencies are on a decline. We don't do cold calls to marketing agencies anymore. it's very difficult to get a hold of them on the phone. So that's not one I would touch. So if anytime we've run calling campaigns to mid-level managers, mid-level to senior level managers, those have done well, right? Now with cold calls, obviously you have to get your basics right. Like you have to, use phone numbers that are non-disposable. Use something like Armor to get your phone numbers out of blacklists. Use a CRM, track phone, be able to follow up with people when they ask for a follow up, be able to navigate around gatekeepers, stuff like that. But as long as you do that, most industries, depending on the title and the seniority, would do well. We haven't, again, I will admit, our experience with cold calling has been to very specific ICPs. For most of our calling, we just do warm calls. So when people reply to us, we just call them on the phone to set an appointment, right? With cold calls, we only do it if we know an ICP is going to be engaged. And many of our clients, we do like very focused cold calling sprints if they've recently gone to an event. So if you attended an event, you purchase a list of attendees and those cold calls, you'd make 100 calls, you'd get 5 meetings a day. So, which is a 5% meeting book rate. And that's crazy, right? But these are very focused sprints. So, it has to be associated with something. And when you have that association, cold calling sprints do very well.
So when you're calling these mid-level managers, are you calling their cell or the business phone? Getting to the cell? Okay, cool. And that has been pretty okay.
Yeah. So the cell, again, I'll give another tip for the audience, right? So before you start calling people, just use Clear Out to find out if you're getting a landline. So there's a tool called Clear Out Phone. Run your numbers through Clear Out Phone. Figure out if you have a mobile number or a landline number or a Google Voice number. Don't waste time calling landlines or Google Voice unless your list is tiny. If your list is tiny, then you have to do what you have to do. But if you have enough phone numbers, just keep the ones that are Google Voice numbers or landlines and only call the mobile phone numbers. You'll have a much better connect rate. And when you're running a team of SDRs, there's a psychological component to it if they're not talking to enough people. We've seen that when an SDR, even a good SDR, when they're not talking to enough people, when they do connect with someone, their performance suffers. So you don't want to give them, not only are they wasting time if you give them bad phone numbers, their morale also goes down, which reflects in the conversations that they actually end up having. So clean your phone numbers just like you would validate your emails before sending someone an email. Clean your phone numbers before you make phone calls and only call the mobile phone numbers. If you don't have enough mobile phone numbers, I would rather the SDR not call someone than just try and call a landline and then not get a response and then, waste time.
2 quick questions. I really wish we had more time, bro. This is actually a really fun podcast for me. So do you leave messages or if they don't answer, you hang up? You leave messages?
On the warm calls, yes. If it's a cold call, no. It's like, if they responded to an email and the message works only so now with iPhone, your messages get transcribed. Right? Mm-hmm. So if they responded to an email, they'll just say, hey, you just responded to Emilia. I'm calling regarding that. That's it. You keep it short. And you just mention the email because they have engaged with you on another channel. And doing this, we've had people email us back saying, yes, I saw your voicemail and, I'm available on so-and-so date. So people see that. If it's a cold call, we don't leave messages because leaving a message is 10, 15 seconds wasted. I would rather call someone else in that time. So you also, again, just like cold email, calling is also an efficiency game.
Absolutely. And then I don't know about you, but I have my phone's on do not disturb basically 24/7. It's so peaceful that way. Yeah. And whenever I do get calls, I have it's not a robo call protector, but it's like Siri or some AI that asks like who's calling.
Right.
What do you say who it is? Because I learned from Cole Gordon and this other person that used to be the CEO of NEPQ. They said, hey, it's just that's all they said. Like it's just 3 words. Hey, it's just, and they don't finish who it is. And because they're curious, like who the hell is this person, that tends to help with the robocaller.
Right. We like to just say the company name. So, their company's name. So, hey, and we do something similar. We don't finish the sentence, but we just say their company name. So calling regarding company and that's it. We leave it at that. Right. So that gets people curious enough to want to return the call. But
thinking about that actually would work on my phone. Like, oh, they're calling about my company. Like, what is this about? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we do. And again, the one that you gave, that's probably going to work just the same, right? The point is keep it vague enough so that they want to call you back.
Curiosity works in sales, man. Curiosity wins. Like I said, I wish you had more time, but let me ask this, man. For a new outbound agency that's just getting started, with your vast amount of experience in case studies, what is one thing that you would tell them that would hopefully speed the pathway to success?
I think it all boils down to being very clear in who you can serve, right? So if you remember in the beginning of our conversation today, I spent a lot of time telling you who we work with and who we cannot work with, right? And it's taken me these 5, 6 years of speaking to all of these different types of businesses and working with different types of businesses to figure out what kinds of businesses work the best with the engine that we build. Now, I also have other friends who are running very successful outbound agencies who work with completely different types of businesses. I have a friend. He runs an agency where they book 3 to 5 appointments a month, but they exclusively target enterprise companies. And, so that's a whole different process, like whole different ballgame. They're doing all sorts of different channels, and their goal is to get you a meeting with Microsoft, right? So that's their engine. Our engine is different. Ours is built around volume. So if you have a sales team that needs appointments, lots of those, that is what we specialize in. So if you're a new outbound agency, you need to figure out this. There's a spectrum, right? So here you have agencies that can deliver a large volume of leads. And here you have agencies that can deliver enterprise leads, So these types of agencies work with businesses that have a small TAM and that have, they only do 7-figure annual contracts or more. And these types of agencies can work with anyone that has a large TAM. And, you could be selling anything from $3,000 a month to $30,000 a month. Most agencies lie somewhere in the middle because they get a client that belongs here and they get a client that belongs here. And then they try to fulfill for both of them. And then it doesn't work out for either of those clients. So client selection, the most important thing you can do as an agency, and that requires you understanding what am I really good at. So that would be my advice.
Atishay, thank you so much for all the nuggets, the advice, the gems, man. Clearly a knowledgeable guy. Keep working hard, bro. Congrats on the case studies. We'll have to have you back in like 12 months, man. Thank you again for joining us.
Absolutely, man. Thanks so much, Jordan. Incredible conversation. Enjoyed
Yes,
it
sir.
a lot.
Bye, audience.